Leopold never did a thing like that before, as to ask to get his breakfast in bed, with a couple of eggs since the City Arms Hotel, when he used to be pretending to be laid up with a sick voice, doing his highness to make himself interesting for that old faggot Mrs. Reardon that he thought he had a great leg of, and she never left us a farthing, all for masses for herself and her soul. Greatest miser ever. Was actually afraid to lay out 4D for her methylated spirit, telling me all her ailments she had. Too much old chat in her about politics and earthquakes and the end of the world. Let us have a bit of fun first. God help the world if all the women were of her sort, down on bathing suits and low necks. Of course, nobody wanted her to wear them. I suppose she was pious because no man would look at her twice. I hope I'll never be like her. A wonder she didn't want us to cover our faces, but she was a well-educated woman, certainly, and her gabby about Mr. Reardon here and Mr. Reardon there, I suppose he was glad to get shut of her, and her dog smelling my fur and always edging up to get under my petticoats, especially then. Still, I like that in him. Polite to old women like that, and waiters and beggars too. He's not proud out of nothing, but not always. If he ever got anything really serious the matter with him, it's much better for them to go into a hospital where everything is clean. But I suppose I'd have to bring it in to him for a month, yes, and then we'd have to have a hospital nurse next thing on the carpet, have him stay there till they throw him out, or a nun maybe, like the smutty photo he has. She's as much a nun as I am not, yes, because they're so weak and puling when they're sick, they want a woman to get well. If his nose bleeds, you'd think it was, oh, tragic, and that dying look one of the South Circular when he sprained his foot at the choir party at the Sugarloaf Mountain, the day I wore that dress, Miss Stack bringing him flowers, the worst old ones she could find at the bottom of the basket, anything at all to get into a man's bedroom with her old maid's voice, trying to imagine he was dying on account of her, to never see thy face again, though he looked more like a man with his beard a bit grown in the bed. Father was the same. Besides, I hate bandaging and dosing when he cut his toe with the razor paring his corns, afraid he'd get blood poisoning. But if it was a thing that I was sick, then we'd see what attention, only of course the woman hides it, not to give all the trouble they do. Yes, he came somewhere, I'm sure, by his appetite. Anyway, love it's not. Or he'd be off his feed thinking of her. So either it was one of those night women, if it was down there, he was really, and the hotel story he made up. A pack of lies to hide it, planning it, and turned my back on him when he slinked out, looking quite conscious. If only they knew him as well as I do, yes, because the day before yesterday he was scribbling something. A letter. When I came in the front room to show him Dingham's death in the paper, as if something told me, and he covered it up with the blotting paper, pretending to be thinking about business, so very probably that was it, to somebody who thinks she has a softy in him, because all men get a bit like that in his age, especially getting on to 40 he is now, so as to wheedle any money she can get out of him. No fool like an old fool. And then the usual kissing my bottom was to hide it, not that I care two straws now who he does it with, or knew before that way, though I'd like to find out so long as I don't have the two of them under my nose all the time, like that slut, that Mary we had in Ontario Terrace, patting out her false bottom to excite him. Bad enough to get the smell of those painted women off him. Once or twice I had a suspicion, by getting him to come near me when I found the long hair on his coat, without that one when I went into the kitchen pretending he was drinking water. One woman is not enough for them. It was all his fault, of course, ruining servants, then proposing that she could eat at our table on Christmas Day. If you please. Oh, no, thank you, not in my house. Stealing my potatoes and the oysters, 2.6 per dozen. Going out to see her aunt, if you please. Common robbery, so it was. But I was sure he had something on with that one. It takes me to find out a thing like that. He said, "You have no proof." It was her proof. Oh, yes, her aunt was very fond of oysters, but I told her what I thought of her, suggesting me to go out to be alone with her. I wouldn't lower myself to spy on them. The garters I found in her room the Friday she was out, that was enough for me. A little bit too much of her face swelled up on her with the temper when I gave her her week's notice. I saw to that. Better do without them altogether. Do out the rooms myself quicker, only for the damn cooking and throwing out the dirt. I gave it to him anyhow. Either she or me leaves the house. I couldn't even touch him if I thought he was with a dirty, bare-faced liar and sloven like that one, denying it up to my face and singing about the place in the WC too. Because she knew she was too well off, yes, because he couldn't possibly do without it that long. So we must do it somewhere.
Mulvey's was the first, when I was in bed that morning, and Mrs. Rubio brought it in with the coffee. She stood there, standing, when I asked her to hand me, and I'm pointing at them. I couldn't think of a word. A hairpin to open it with. Horkia? Disobliging old thing. And it's staring her in the face, with her switch of her false hair on her, and vain about her appearance, ugly as she was, near 80 or 100, her face a mass of wrinkles, with all her religion domineering because she could never get over the Atlantic fleet coming in, half the ships of the world and the Union Jack flying with all of our carabineros, because 4 drunken English sailors took all the rock from them, and because I didn't run into Mass often enough in Santa Maria to please her with her shawl upon her. Except when there was a marriage on with all her miracles of the saints and her black blessed Virgin with the silver dress and the sun dancing 3 times on Easter Sunday morning. The word is skin. And when the priest was going by with the bell, bringing the Vatican to the dying, blessing herself for his majestad, an admirer, he signed it. And you jumped out of my skin. I wanted to pick him up when I saw him following me along the Calle Real in the shop window when he tipped me just in passing. But I never thought he'd write making an appointment. I had it inside my petticoat bodice all day, reading it up in every hole and corner while Father was up at the drill instructing, to find out by the handwriting or the language of the stamps, singing, I remember, "Shall I wear a white rose?" And I wanted to put on the old stupid clock to near the time. He was the first man kissed me under the Moorish wall, my sweetheart, when a boy. It never entered my head what kissing meant till he put his tongue in my mouth. His mouth was sweet like young. I put my knee up to him a few times to learn the way. What did I tell him? I was engaged for fun to the son of a Spanish nobleman named Don Miguel de la Flora, and he believed me that I was to be married to him in 3 years' time. There's many a true word spoken in jest. There is a flower that bloometh. A few things I told him true about myself, just for him to be imagining. The Spanish girls he didn't like. I suppose one of them wouldn't have him. I got him excited. He crushed all the flowers on my bosom. He brought me. He couldn't count the pesetas and the perigordas till I taught him. Capo Quinn he came from, he said, on the Black Water. But it was too short then. The day before he left May. Yes, it was May, when the infant king of Spain was born. I'm always like that in the spring. I'd like a new fellow every year, up on the tip-top under the rock gun near O'Hara's tower. I told him it was struck by lightning, and all about the old Barbary apes they sent to Clapham, without a tail careering all over the show on each other's back. Mrs. Rubio said she was a regular old rock scorpion, robbing the chickens out of Ince's farm and throw stones at you if you went near. He was looking at me. I had that white blouse on, open up in the front to encourage him as much as I could without too openly. They were just beginning to be plump. I said I was tired. We lay over the fir tree cove, a wild place, I suppose. It must be the highest rock in existence. The galleries and the casemates and those frightful rocks and St. Michael's cave with the icicles or whatever they call 'em hanging down, and ladders, all the mud plotching my boots. I'm sure that's the way down the monkeys go, under the sea to Africa when they die. The ship's out far like chips. That was the Malta boat passing, yes. The the sea and the sky. You could do what you liked. Lie there forever. He caressed them outside. They love doing that. It's the roundness. There I was, leaning over him, with my white rice straw hat to take newness out of it. The left side of my face, the best my blouse open for his last day. Transparent kind of shirt he had. I could see his chest. Pink. He wanted to touch mine with his for a moment, but I wouldn't let him. He was awfully put out. First for fear. Well, you never know. Consumption, or leave me with a child embarazada. That old servant, Inez, told me that one drop, even if it got into you at all, after I tried with the banana, but I was afraid it might break and get lost up in me somewhere, because they once took something down out of a woman that had been up there for years, covered with lime salts. They're all mad to get it in there where they come out of. You'd think they could never go far enough up. And then they're done with you and away till the next time. Yes, because there's a wonderful feeling there. So tender all the time. How did we finish it off? Yes, oh yes. I pulled him off onto my handkerchief, pretending not to be excited. But I opened my legs. I wouldn't let him touch me inside my petticoat, because I had a skirt opening up the side. I tormented the life out of him, first tickling him. I loved rousing that dog in the hotel.
I hope that lamp is not smoking. Fill my nose up with smuts. Better than having him leaving the gas on all night. I couldn't rest easy in my bed in Gibraltar, even getting up to see. Why am I so damn nervous about that? Though I like it in the winter, it's more company. Oh Lord, it was rotten cold too that winter. When I was only about 10 was I, yes. I had the big doll with all the funny clothes, dressing her up and undressing, that icy winter skiing across from those mountains, the something Nevada, Sierra Nevada. Standing at the fire with the little bit of a short shift I had up to heat myself. I loved dancing about in it, then make a race back into bed. I'm sure Leopold used to be there the whole time, watching with the lights out in the summer and I in my skin hopping around. I used to love myself, then stripped at the washstand, dabbing and creaming, only when it came to the chamber performance. I put out the lights too, so then there were two of us. Goodbye to my sleep for the night. Anyhow, I hope he's not going to get in with those medicals, leading him astray to imagine he's young again, coming in at 4 a.m, it must be, if not more. Still, he had the manners not to wake me. What do they find to gabber about all night? Squandering money and getting drunker and drunker? Couldn't they drink water? Then he starts giving us orders for eggs and tea and Findon Haddie and hot buttered toast. I suppose we'll have him sitting up like the king of the country, pumping the wrong end of the spoon up and down in his egg, wherever he learned that from. And I love to hear him falling up the stairs of a morning, with the cups rattling on the tray, and then play with the cat. She rubs up against you for her own sake. I wonder has she fleas. She's as bad as a woman, always licking and leaking, but I hate their claws. I wonder, do they see anything that we can't? Staring like that when she sits at the top of the stairs so long and listening as I wait. Always would a robber, too. That lovely fresh palace I bought. I think I'll get a bit of fish tomorrow, or today. Is it Friday? Yes, I will. With some blancmange with blackcurrant jam like long ago. Not those 2-pound pots of mixed plum and apple. Goes twice as far. Only for the bones, I hate those eels. Cod? Yes, I'll get a nice piece of cod. I'm always getting enough for 3. Forgetting. Anyway, I'm sick of that everlasting butcher's meat from Buckley's. Loin chops and leg beef and rib steak and scrap of mutton and calf's pluck. The very name is enough. Or a picnic. Suppose we all gave 5 each, and/or let him pay it, and invite some other woman for him. Who? Mrs. Fleming, and drove out to the Furry Glen or the strawberry beds. We'd have him examining all the horse's toenails first, like he does with the letters. No, not with Boylan there. Yes, with some cold veal and ham mixed sandwiches. There are little houses down at the bottom of the banks. They're on purpose, but it's as hot as blazes, he says. Not a bank holiday. Anyhow, I hate those Ruck of Marianne coal boxes out for the day. Whit Monday is a cursed day too. No wonder that bee bit him. Better the seaside, but I'd never again in this life get into a boat with Leopold after him at Bray, telling the boatman he knew how to row. If anyone asked if he could ride the steeplechase for the Gold Cup, he'd say yes. Then it came on to get rough, the old thing crooketing about, and the weight all down my side, telling me to pull the right reins now, pull the left, and the tide all swamping in floods in through the bottom, and his oar slipping out through the stirrup. It's a mercy we weren't all drowned. He can swim, of course. Me, no. There's no danger whatsoever. Keep yourself calm in his flannel trousers. I'd like to have tattered them down off him before all the people and give him what that one calls flagellate, till he was black and blue. Do him all the good in the world.
No, that's no way for him. He has no manners, nor no refinement, nor nothing in his nature. Slapping us behind like that on my bottom because I didn't call him Hugh. The ignoramus that doesn't know poetry from a cabbage. That's what you get for not keeping them in their proper place. Pulling off his shoes and trousers there on the chair before me. So barefaced without even asking permission. And standing out that vulgar way in the half of a shirt they wear. To be admired like a priest or a butcher. Or those old hypocrites in the time of Julius Caesar. Of course, he's right enough in his way to pass the time as a joke. Sure, you might be as well be in bed with what? With a lion. God, I'm sure he'd have something better to say for himself in old Lion Wood. Men again. All over, they can pick and choose what they please. A married woman, or a fast widow, or a girl for their different tastes. Like those houses round behind Irish Street. No, but we're always to be chained up. They're not going to be chaining me up, no damn fear. Once I start, I tell you, for their husband's jealousy. Why can't we all remain friends over it, instead of quarreling? Her husband found it out, what they did together. Well, naturally. And if he did, can he undo it? He is Coronado, anyway, whatever he does. And then he going to the other mad extreme about the wife in Fair Tyrants. Of course, the man never even casts a second thought on the husband or wife either. It's the woman he wants, and he gets her. What else were we given all those desires for, I'd like to know? I can't help it if I'm young still, can I? It's a wonder I'm not an old shriveled hag before my time, living with him so cold, never embracing me except sometimes when he's asleep the wrong end of me, not knowing, I suppose, who he has. Any man that kiss a woman's bottom, I'd throw my hat at him after that. He'd kiss anything unnatural, where we haven't one atom of any kind of expression in us, all of us the same 2 lumps of lard before ever I'd do to that man. Poof, the dirty brutes. The mere thought is enough. I kiss the feet of you, senorita. There's some sense in that. Didn't he kiss our hall door, yes? He did. What a madman. Nobody understands his cracked ideas but me. Still, of course, woman wants to be embraced 20 times a day, almost to make her look young no matter by who. So long as to be in love or loved by someone if the fellow you want isn't there, sometimes by the Lord God. I was thinking, would I go around by the quays there some dark evening, where nobody'd know me, and pick a sailor off the sea that'd be hot on for it and not care a pin? If he knew how he came out on the cards this morning, he'd have something to sigh for. A dark man in some perplexity between 2 sevens too. In prison for Lord knows what he does that I don't know. And I'm to be slouching around down in the kitchen to get his lordship his breakfast while he's rolled up like a mummy. Will I indeed? Did you ever see me running? I'd just like to see myself at it. Show them any attention and they treat you like dirt. I don't care what anybody says. It'd be much better for the world to be governed by the women in it. You wouldn't see women going and killing one another and slaughtering. When do you ever see women rolling around drunk like they do, or gambling every penny they have and losing it on horses, yes? Because a woman, whatever she does, she knows where to stop. Sure, they wouldn't be in the world at all, only for us. They don't know what it is to be a woman and a mother. How could they? Where would they all of them be if they hadn't all a mother to look after them? What I never had. That's why I suppose he's running wild now out at night away from his books and studies and not living at home on account of the usual rowy house, I suppose. Well, it's a poor case that those that have a fine son like that, they're not satisfied and I none. I suppose I oughtn't to have buried him in that little woolly jacket I knitted, crying as I was, but give it to some poor child. But I knew well I'd never have another. Our first death, too, it was. We were never the same since. Oh, I'm not going to think myself into the glooms about that any more. I wonder why he didn't stay the night. I felt all the time it was somebody strange he brought in instead of roving around the city, meeting God knows who, night walkers and pickpockets. His poor mother wouldn't like that if she were alive. Ruining himself for life, perhaps. Still, it's a lovely hour, so silent. I used to love coming home after dances, the air of the night. They have friends they can talk to, and we've none. Either he wants what he won't get, or it's some woman ready to stick her knife in you. I hate that in women. No wonder they treat us the way they do. We are a dreadful lot of bitches. I suppose it's all the troubles we have makes us so snappy.
I love flowers. I'd love to have the whole place swimming in roses. God of heaven, there's nothing like nature. The wild mountains, then the sea and the waves rushing, then the beautiful country with the fields of oats and wheat and all kinds of things, and all the fine cattle going about. That would do your heart good. To see rivers and lakes and flowers, all sorts of shapes and smells and colors springing up, even out of the ditches, primroses and violets. Nature, it is. As for them saying there's no God, I wouldn't give a snap of my 2 fingers for all their learning. Why don't they go and create something, I often asked him. Atheists, or whatever they call themselves, go and wash the cobbles off themselves first. Then they go howling for the priest and they dying, and why? Because they're afraid of hell, on account of their bad conscience. Ah, yes, I know them well. Who was the first person in the universe before there was anybody that made it all? Who? That they don't know. Neither do I, so there you are. They might as well try to stop the sun from rising tomorrow. The sun shines for you, Leopold said. The day we were lying among the rhododendrons in Houthhead in the grey tweed suit and his straw hat. The day I got him to propose to me, yes. First I gave him the bit of seed cake out of my mouth, and it was like leap year now, yes. 16 years ago, my God. After that long kiss, I near lost my breath. Yes. He said I was a flower of the mountain, yes. So we are flowers all, a woman's body. Yes, that was the one true thing he said in his life. And the sun shines for you today. Yes, that was why I liked him, because I saw he understood or felt what a woman is. And I knew I could always get round him, and I gave him all the pleasure I could, leading him on till he asked me to say yes. And I wouldn't answer first, only looked out over the sea and the sky. I was thinking of so many things. He didn't know of Mulvey and Mr. Stanhope and Hester and Father and old Captain Groves and the sailors playing All Birds Fly, and I say stoop and washing up dishes, they called it on the pier. And the sentry in front of the governor's house with the thing round his white helmet, poor devil, half roasted. And the Spanish girls laughing in their shawls and their tall combs, and the auctions in the morning, the Greeks and the Jews and the Arabs and devil knows who else from all ends of Europe. And Duke Street and the Fowl Market all clucking outside Lady Sharon's and the poor donkeys slipping half asleep. And the vague fellows in the cloaks asleep in the shade on the steps. and the big wheels of the carts of the bulls in the old castle, thousands of years old, yes. And those handsome Moors, all in white and turbans, like kings, asking you to sit down in their little bit of a shop. And Rhonda with the old windows of the posadas, 2 glancing eyes, a lattice hid for her lover to kiss the iron, and the wine shops half open at night, and the castanets. And the night we missed the boat at Algeciras, the watchman going about serene with his lamp. And oh, that awful deep down torrent, oh, and the sea, crimson sometimes like fire, and the glorious sunsets and the fig trees in the Alameda gardens, yes. And all the queer little streets, and the pink and blue and yellow houses, and the rose gardens, and the jessamine and geraniums and cactuses, and Gibraltar as a girl, where I was the flower of the mountain, yes. When I put the rose in my hair like the Andalusian girls used, or shall I wear a red? Yes. And how he kissed me under the Moorish wall, and I thought, well, as him is another. And then I asked him with my eyes to ask again, yes, and then he asked me, would I, yes, to say yes, my mountain flower. And first I put my arms around him, yes, and drew him down to me so he could feel my breasts all perfume, yes. And his heart was going like mad. And yes, I said, yes, I will. Yes.